to build equity and then sell it. And I'd love to hear what were some of somebody who's exited more than once, what are the keys to pulling that off in a favorable way from a high level?
I think, you've got to show, strong growth, good customer base, good product, good customer retention. All the standard metrics going to get measured by, whoever's buying your business, be it a VC, be it a private sale or, some sort of merger and acquisition. So I think build a good business and, then they will come. How do you sell AI? Very often you sell it as a SaaS product. That's what we do. We create it, we stick it on a server, we let people license the technology from. And so SaaS and AI to me are just two flip sides of the same coin.
What would your top advice be to other SaaS founders, other entrepreneurs that are really serious about building products in 2024? John, welcome to Growth Stories. So happy to have you on the show. I'd love to hear, can you give us a brief introduction to your experience?
Yeah, sure. Hi, John. Thanks very much for having me. Yeah, so I grew up in the UK, went to college in the UK, been doing startups my whole life. I did one in Ireland in the 90s, which was quite successful. I sold that in the late 90s, early 2000s, moved back to the UK, spent a few more years there, moved to San Diego, did a startup in San Diego. That went through a couple of iterations, ended up being reasonably successful with an exit in 2011. And then moved to the Silicon Valley, or San Francisco actually, in 2011. And I've done a couple more startups since then. So sort of startups initially semiconductor related, but then more recently software, SaaS, digital twins, and most recently AI type functionality.
Amazing. Hey, we were probably in the Bay at the same time. That's like around when I was there. So, a lot of people that I talk to are, especially in SaaS. SaaS is not, it's not a cash flow business. Like you're not trying to build a cash machine. Most people are trying to build equity and then sell it. And I'd love to hear what were some of as somebody who's exited more than once, what are the keys to pulling that off in a favorable way from a high level?
I think, you've got to show, strong growth, good customer base, good product, good customer retention. All the standard metrics going to get measured by, whoever's buying your business, be it a VC, be it a private sale or, some sort of merger and acquisition. So I think build a good business and, then they will come.
Simple, very simple. And I'd love to hear, for these companies, what was your approach to go to market? When I talk to, for example, different industry leaders, there's always a very strong opinions about like how marketing should work. And I feel like SaaS has its own point of view. I'd love to hear what's your point of view for, effectively marketing a new SaaS, especially at the beginning versus as it grows.
So my experience is B2B. So I can't come on a B2C, which is a whole other set of things. Yeah. B2B, I think initially is going to be direct sales. I think I find LinkedIn is about as good as anything. There's a lot of people out there telling you they're going to make a film and it's going to generate tons of interest, or you should be doing this marketing or that marketing. Have a good website, LinkedIn, especially when you're, the transactions you're dealing with, especially in my case, tend to be doing $50,000, $100,000 per customer or more. So you don't have to acquire that many customers to build the revenue. Later on, as your reputation starts to grow and you have partnerships with other, people in the industry, then you're going to get a lead flow. I've worked with Plug and Play extensively. They generate a good set of leads from their sort of OEM client base, partnering up with, the big guys in that space. Right now we're partnered with Bentley Systems, for example. And, of course, they have huge reach. They're in every big construction project pretty much in the world. But I think you've got to grow that reputation a bit first. For me, direct sales and get a good lead generation program going, figure out the messaging that works, and then, one-on-one sales.
Yeah. Yeah. When the price is high enough, it's hard not to go with one-on-one sales. And do you think the VC landscape has changed, especially now with AI? There's so many, I feel like I see a couple of things. One, people are, I would call it like AI washing their products. It's
there's a lot of
AI.
that. Yeah.
And then at the same time, everyone is so excited about vibe coding and all this. And it's like almost there, maybe. I don't know. As long as you don't go too far, But and this seems to have affected, what people expect before you raise. Was it working in your point of view right now?
I haven't done a raise in a little while, so I haven't done a raise in the age of AI. But without a doubt, right now, if you go out without an AI element to your products, you're going to have a tough time. 5 years or 7 years ago, you had to have a Bitcoin or a blockchain component to your product. So there's a little bit of like everything. There's fads in the VC industry as much as there are in anything else. But I do think AI is a genuine game changer. I mean, the large language models, RAGs, can really open up things that couldn't have been done 3-4 years ago, that now can be done relatively easily to change the way products are created and the way they operate. So there's definitely a real element to AI. How have VCs changed? In my raising career, check sizes have got a lot bigger. As more money comes into the VC industry, funds become 100 million, then 200 million, then 300 million. So you're going to write a check out of a $200 million fund. You want to write a $20 million check, because otherwise you're going to have
too many checks.
Too many checks. So Series A's got pushed from 5 million to 10 million to, you now hear Series A being 20, 30 million. That's left a bit of a hole at the early stage, because you've now got to go and get money. If I were $1 million, it's actually quite hard to find people to raise $1 million from. There's less of those than there are to raise for $10 million. So it continues to change. I mean, VC industry generates good returns in general. They've got a high tolerance for risk. Early stage companies need people who've got a high tolerance for risk. I think fundamentally the industry is the same. It's just the metrics have probably changed, moved around quite a bit.
Yeah. And so can you tell us a little bit about the product you're building right now?
Yeah, so we're kind of actually just starting a new product development. We're tackling problems in AI. My partner, Chantika Mendes, is a deep AI guy. He's been doing it for years. The one area we're specifically focused on at the moment is kind of those irritating reporting problems. For example, when you're doing something like green building certification, LEED certification, you just have to gather a ton of information from different sources, out of PDFs, out of invoices, off the web. And AI can automate a lot of that. So we can take a lot of the hassle factor out of those sort of reporting functions. So we're looking for little niches like that, where you can, take what AI does and you can turn somebody's mundane job into a much more interesting job, and they'd be much more productive. And there's, there's AI for everything, but there's still niches out there, and we're sort of interested in exploring those niches.
Logically, that makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking about, like, where would improving reporting make a huge return, and certification would be like very reasonable. I don't know what it costs
the
to
time,
get
the time and money
certified.
spent on the sheer gathering of data and munging it into the right. And you can get quite sophisticated. If you look at oil and gas, they've got reporting requirements around methane. Well, okay, but that involves pulling methane emission data off the drill pad, the actual installation. It involves combining that with environmental data, combining that with all sorts of data. It's a fairly complex data gathering operation. So again, sticking AI in that is going to, make it much more efficient, B, more accurate. And as I say, it's going to let people focus on the value add rather than the mundane data gathering. So that's just one area, but that seems to be a fairly rich vein at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how much should we worry as product people that just general AI is going to, the Microsoft CEO was saying SaaS is dead, and I think a lot of people are thinking, man, if this keeps going and getting better and better, at what point can I just have a prompt do all the functionality of a major application? Is that something we need to worry about? And if so, how do you hedge against this possibility?
I'm not quite sure what he meant, because how do you sell AI? Very often you sell it as a SaaS product.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We create it, we stick it on a server, we let people license the technology from them. So SaaS and AI to me are just two flip sides of the same coin. I'll go back to your earlier point about vibe coding, and this sort of idea that in the not too distant future, you're going to hit a button and AI is going to spit out exactly what you want. Chandika wrote a nice article. It's up on LinkedIn at the moment about vibe coding, and he says that what it's going to do is train a bunch of lazy engineers who don't know how to code, and it's going to create a massive technical debt because the code's not always that good.
Yeah.
So then you've got this huge problem. You've got untrained engineers who don't really know what good code is, and you've got a lot of an average code.
Yeah.
So he thinks it's a great productivity tool for certain areas of coding, but if you seriously think you're just going to have a AI write your code for you, I suspect I don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon anyway. But yeah, I
people
see
are
SaaS
advertising
and AI
it right now.
Of course they're advertising it. They've been
Which
advertising.
doesn't mean it works, but they are.
Low code was a thing, I don't know how many years ago, 5-7 years ago. And it was great. If you're doing really simple things, you could use low code to, drag a couple of boxes around and spits out code and it's fine. But as soon as the complexity rose a bit, it really fell over. And
Mhm.
then you end up with, code that can't be debugged. You can't read it. It's, just gibberish on a page. So it doesn't help
Yes.
you. It's great for certain things, but these continual hype cycles around, okay, we're going to have this next great big thing is going to solve the world's problems, or going to put all the coders out of business, or
Yeah.
going to replace human beings in general, I take with a large pinch of salt.
Yeah, that seems healthy. I'm tempted to I'll try to tell this super brief version of the story. Have you ever used National Instruments software? It's just so niche. Okay. They have like drag and drop stuff for physicists who have to code. And one day in my early career, I had to debug a memory leak in the National Instruments thing. And long story short, it was like somebody had to make a lock-in amplifier with software. In order to debug it, I had to print out the images and like lay them out on the floor and like, try to visually see like, oh, there's the memory leak. It took so long. And I feel like I
Yeah.
remember thinking, this cannot be the right way. And we sort of went back to this
It's been an
problem.
ongoing thing in technology, Silicon Valley forever. I remember I was in the hardware industry. The Holy Grail was rather than program FPGAs, field programmable gate arrays, you had to
Yeah.
program them in fairly specialized languages like Verilog, which was complicated and you had to learn it, and that was painful. And there was always this idea, we're going to just write C and something's going to convert the C into RTL, and the RTL is going to program the FPGA, and it never worked. It was chased around for 10 years and release after release, and we've done it now, and then you tried it. It just causes more problems than it's worth eventually. But I think vibe coding is going to be the same. It's going to spit out a lot of low quality code, and at some point it's going to cause some problems.
Yeah. It's just my wonder is like how far it can go before it kind of die, before that's made the spaghetti mess so bad you have to throw it out. And if it can get you to the MVP, that's going to be amazing economically for a lot of people to be able to. There's no hope of maintaining it, but you got to the point you could sell something and validate
Yeah,
demand.
then you got to redesign the whole thing all over
Then you got to
again.
redo it.
No, I think it's going to be great there's mundane pieces of coding. Not that I'm a coder, but I mean, my understanding is, there's always bits of code that can be automated, and it's a productivity enhancer without a doubt, but I don't think it replaces human beings just yet.
Yeah. And what would you, for other people who are starting SaaS products right now in this like AI age where there's so much, I think it feels like there's a lot of saturation to a lot of people, maybe
Mhm.
because it's easy to get something very quickly off the ground, but it might not work that well. What would as we wrap up, what would your top advice be to other SaaS founders, other entrepreneurs that are really serious about building products in 2025?
Good question. I mean, first of all, SaaS is a delivery mechanism. It's just a way of billing people. So, I mean, you can ship the code and they pay you a yearly, they buy it from you, or SaaS, they create a subscription. That subscription could be to an AI platform, a 3D graphics platform. It could be anything. So SaaS is the delivery mechanism. So I don't think people are building SaaS products. I think they're building products where SaaS is one way of delivering and monetizing that product. I think
Yeah.
fundamentally product market fit is still, it's very easy to build something that looks super cool and nobody wants. I've done that. You run around and you beat on doors and people go, wow, that's really interesting. Let's see a demo. But you never sell many. So product market fit, I mean, that's the back to the fundamentals. When you find a pain point, a problem, something that people need help with, create a product that solves that pain point, that problem, get out there and make sure that people will pay money for it. So you have achieved product market. Once you've got that, then it's a scaling problem, which is, relatively straightforward. The SaaS could be your delivery mechanism. It could be delivered in other ways. I mean, who knows? But the fundamentals remain exactly the same as they were 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years ago. Why do people need your product? What does it do? Does it do it well? Will people pay money for it? How do you scale it up?
Love it. Fundamentals. Well, thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much, John. It's been a pleasure.
So, thanks for inviting me. Really enjoyed it.